Okay, Rose, this is Story of the World, Chapter 19, for you to work on while I'm gone. I'm going to read the first section, which is called Richard the Lionhearted. Many knights and noblemen of England went off to fight in the Crusades, and so did one of England's most famous kings, Richard the First. For his courage in battle, Richard became known as Richard the Lionhearted. Richard was tall, golden-haired, strong, and broad-shouldered. He looked exactly like a king. But Richard the Lionhearted spent very little of his reign being a king. When he was still a prince, he heard that Jerusalem had been recaptured by Saladin, and from that moment on, Richard's only desire was to get Hank to stop making that noise with the chair in the background. Actually, Richard's only desire was to go and fight in the Crusades. 2 years later, Richard's father died. In 1189, Richard was crowned King of England. As soon as he became king, he started to sell off his possessions so that he could raise an army to take on a crusade. He declared, "I would sell London itself if I could find the man to buy it." And as soon as he had enough money, Richard left England and stayed away for years and years. Almost everyone was angry, one medieval historian tells us, that the king would leave his own kingdom with so much speed as though he didn't care anything about it. When Richard arrived in the Holy Land, he joined forces with the King of France and the Duke of Austria. But soon he quarreled with the King of France, who decided that it would be easier to go back to France than to keep on dealing with Richard. And then Richard announced that the Duke of Austria shouldn't be flying his banner right next to Richard's. After all, Richard was a king and the Duke was just a Duke. When the Duke refused to move his banner, Richard told his men to go steal the banner and throw it in the mud. At this, the Duke took his soldiers and went home. Richard had lost all of his allies. Sounds like he was a jerk. Richard marched on towards Jerusalem with his English crusaders, but Saladin's army came out to meet him and kept him from ever reaching the city. Once Richard fought his way into sight of Jerusalem, but although his armies gazed at it longingly, Richard himself would not turn his gaze towards it. "I will not even look," he announced, "at the walls of the city which God himself will not allow me to deliver." Meanwhile, Richard started hearing rumors from home. His younger brother John was trying to steal his throne, so Richard started back to England to protect his crown. He decided to take a shortcut across Austria and ran into none other than the Duke of Austria. The Duke had not forgotten Richard's insults, so he took Richard and shut him up in a tall prison tower. No one knew where Richard was. All of England mourned over his death, except, of course, for John. And Richard himself lay on a heap of dirty straw, staring through his tiny barred window at the blue of the sky. But one person did not believe that Richard was dead. According to legend, Richard's faithful friend Blondel crisscrossed Europe on foot, peering into every dungeon and pausing outside every fortress. He would sing an English song and pause to see whether anyone answered. But usually French or German or Italian faces would peer over the battlements, not understanding the English words. Blondel made his way down the winding green shores of the Danube, pausing and singing at each castle. It was almost dark one night when he halted at one tall, grim tower, wondering whether the inhabitants might give him a bed for the night. He sat down at the base of the tower, leaning his back against the cool stone, and as he pondered, he idly hummed the first lines of an old, old tune, Greensleeves. As his voice trailed off into silence, he heard the second line, hummed waveringly from far above him. Blondel leaped to his feet. He sang the third line, and a voice sang out the fourth line in English. He looked up and saw Richard's blond head, dirty and matted, his beard grown long and ragged in the window far above. Blondel went back to England and announced, "Richard is alive!" Most of England rejoiced to hear it. They sent ambassadors to the Duke of Austria begging him to release Richard. The Duke agreed to set Richard free in exchange for 150,000 marks. I don't know how much a mark is worth, but 150,000 of anything's got to be worth a lot. This was a huge amount of money, almost $3 million in today's money, so a lot of money. John suggested that it would be easier just to leave Richard in jail, but the people of England disagreed. They paid the ransom, and Richard returned home to England. But he didn't stay long. Soon he was off again, this time to fight the King of France over French cities, which Richard claimed belonged to him. In 1199, Richard was fighting the defenders of a tiny, worthless French castle when he was killed by a stray arrow. He had survived Saladin's fierce armies only to fall in a meaningless battle close to home. Now his brother John would finally inherit the throne of England. Oh, man. Crazy story. So I think your assignment for this one should be to look up the words to Greensleeves and maybe watch a couple performances of it on YouTube so you can get a sense for that song because it's a pretty important song and a pretty important melody. And see if you can relate the melody to a song that we sing at Christmas time. See you next time.